Welcome to the August 25th, 2018 edition of the BitcoinNews.com Daily Radio Show. We cover the biggest stories in blockchain, Bitcoin, and cryptocurrency every single day you can count on us being here. This is your host, Space Marine.
And this is Space Cadet. What is up, everybody? Bitcoin is sitting at $6,600 this evening. Space Marine.
Affirmative, Space Cadet. Bitcoin's at $6,600. And it was actually as high as $6,800 only a few hours ago. And I don't know why it's dropping. There's many reasons why the price could drop by a small amount like this. But in general, Bitcoin's price has actually been rising from as low as about $6,250 or $6,300. And it rose all the way to $6,800 earlier this evening, and now it's dropped to $6,600. But it's on an uptrend, but that uptrend is finally broken, it seems. We'll see in the coming hours and the coming day if it'll just bounce right back up and go back up on that uptrend, or if this is actually a downtrend that will continue. I don't know. What's been going on in the market as far as hype? Because the market's actually controlled by people across the world. Buying and selling is controlled by supply and demand. But the hype has been the Bitcoin ETFs, exchange-traded funds. The SEC rejected 9 of them at once. The Direxion Pro shares and Granite shares. That was 9 total. And then, at least for Direxion and maybe the other ones, Direxion had 5 Bitcoin ETFs that were rejected. They stayed the order, and stayed means they're going to keep reviewing it, and it's not officially rejected yet anymore. It was officially rejected, but now the senior SEC officials will review the rejection and possibly approve it. But in the past, apparently, I thought this was the first time this happened, but actually the Winklevoss Bitcoin Trust ETF was rejected in the past, and then it got stayed for like a year. And this stay process could last a long time. Like, it's not going to affect the market again for a while. There's some positive hype that might have caused this rise from 6,250 to 6,800, but now it's fallen off track. But to get back to the point, basically, they stayed it, and that doesn't mean they're going to make a decision anytime soon. They can make a decision a year, maybe 2 years from now. I don't think there's an official time limit on this. And then they're likely to reject it anyways. And we're actually going to talk about that in one of our stories, but not right this second. Now for our first story.
Mt Gox collecting creditors' lost claims. Space Marine.
Affirmative, Space Cadet. As the early Bitcoiners like me remember, Mt. Gox was the biggest Bitcoin exchange in the world. Like, basically back in the day, there was Bitcoin dealers peer-to-peer on like local Bitcoins and independently, and then there was Mt. Gox. That was like the first exchange, and it was the biggest for a while. It was so big that Satoshi Nakamoto gave one of the... Well, there was an alert key where you could send an alert across all the Bitcoin wallets, and he gave this alert key to the Mt. Gox CEO, Mark Karpeles. And Mark Karpeles actually went to jail, and we're about to talk about this. Mt. Gox got hacked really bad. They lost 850,000 Bitcoins, and at the time it wasn't worth as much as it is now. So they lost 850,000 Bitcoins. It appeared like a total loss. Like, maybe customers could have got 10% back, but they were talking about, creditors are going to get the money that was left over, and it's not even enough for the creditors. Because at the time, Bitcoin was much, much, much lower. It was in the hundreds of dollars, not even $1,000. It was in the hundreds of dollars, or even like $100 when Mt. Gox got hacked. And this was like a big effect in the Bitcoin world, though, because it was like the only big exchange, and it was one that everyone uses across the world. And then it got hacked. And here's what happened with Mark Karpeles. Mt. Gox got hacked, and then Mark Karpeles kept it hidden because Mt. Gox was so popular that people were pushing money into it really fast. So he just didn't tell anyone when it got hacked. And then people were depositing money for months, maybe over a year, before he told anyone. Because what happened is Bitcoin had a crash or something like that, and then people pulled their money out faster than he could handle because there was a lot of money missing. Most of the money was missing. So once people were pulling money out faster than they were putting it in, it collapsed. So Mark Karpeles went to jail. I believe he's still in jail in Japan. And the funds for Mt. Gox were put over to a court-appointed trustee in Japan. And that trustee has been taking his time on these claims, and it's actually been a good thing overall because now Bitcoin's gone up so much. Of course, Bitcoin went down a lot this year. It would have been better if the people would have got their Bitcoins back in like January or December when Bitcoin was near its peak at $20,000 per coin. But now, anyways, they're finally doing the process, and people have until October 22nd. If people had coins in Mt. Gox, they can make claims until October 22nd, and this is kind of unfortunate. There's a lot of people that might not even see this. They might have written it off a long time ago. They might have died, and if they died, their family won't get it, etc., etc. But the people that are aware of this situation, they have a chance until October 22nd to submit a claim. And here's the thing. 200,000 Bitcoins were actually remaining. 850,000 Bitcoins were not around. And, God knows that 200,000 Bitcoins that are remaining were mostly put in after the hack happened. Like, Mt. Gox was hacked. And then maybe these Bitcoins that are remaining were deposited after because it was running for a long time. So these 200,000 Bitcoins are now worth more than the money that was hacked, more than the total amount of money the exchange had. So not only will everyone that lost money have a chance to get a full refund as far as USD goes, of course, as far as Bitcoin goes, they would have had far more money if they weren't hacked and they had the full amounts of Bitcoin. But as far as USD dollar values go, they're going to get a full refund and then some. Right now, 200,000 Bitcoins is worth $1.32 billion at the current Bitcoin price of $6,600. And Bitcoin could go up a lot in the future, but that's besides the point. Right now, it's $1.32 billion that the trustee of Mt. Gox has. This is far more money than was lost from Mt. Gox and far more money than Mt. Gox ever had. So people are going to get a refund and then a big profit on top of that technically. But of course, if they had the pure Bitcoins coming back, they would get a lot more, like a ton more. But at least they're getting a full USD refund. Additionally, Mt. Gox was hacked way before the Bitcoin Cash fork. Bitcoin Cash happened in 2017 when there was a big debate over segregated witness and block size. So everyone that was holding Bitcoin before the fork happened got an equivalent amount of Bitcoin Cash to their amounts of Bitcoin. Of course, Bitcoin Cash is not worth nearly the amount of Bitcoin. It's worth like about $500. Regardless, that's going to be worth about $100 million. So Mt. Gox has like around $100 million of Bitcoin Cash, probably. I believe they've been selling some of it for USD. They actually sold some of the Bitcoins and the Bitcoin Cash for USD when the market was at its highest. The trustee had the ability to do that. I don't know the exact details. The article I'm reading on Bitcoin News right now is just telling me it's 200,000 Bitcoins that were recovered. So that means they recovered 200,000 Bitcoin Cash. But I know for sure they sold some of it because I wrote an article about this too in the past. And for anyone listening to this that actually had coins in Mt. Gox, like all the early Bitcoiners that had coins in Mt. Gox, they have to jump on this. If they don't get their claims in by October 22nd, 2018, Mt. Gox will no longer offer them anything at all. So that's pretty awful. And I hope Mt. Gox is going through the trouble of actually contacting them any way they can. Because, of course, this was a long time ago. Long time ago when Bitcoin was in the hundreds of dollars. People might not be using the same emails and such, and they might not even see this unless they're really up to date on the news. In fact, a lot of the people that were involved in this might have stopped using Bitcoin because they hated Bitcoin after this. So they're probably not even going to be up to date on the Bitcoin news. They're not going to be reading BitcoinNews.com. They're not going to be reading any of the sites. So I hope they get notified. I hope Mt. Gox uses some of their money, like $1 million, and contacts everyone. That's all it would take to contact like everyone. They have over $1 billion for the trustee. So hopefully this is done fairly. On to our next story.
One last hurdle for Bitcoin rally, Space Marine.
The farmer to space cadet Brian Kelly on CNBC says there's one last hurdle for a Bitcoin rally, and he says unequivocally and explicitly it's a Bitcoin exchange traded fund or ETF. This has been like the biggest news for a while now. He says a Bitcoin ETF is what's going to cause the next rally, and I think he is totally wrong for many reasons. To start, what's really causing Bitcoin to rise long term is its adoption, and this comes from common people. A Bitcoin ETF is for institutional investors. Yes, institutional investors will cause Bitcoin to go up a lot once they have a proper channel to pour as much money as they want into Bitcoin. And a Bitcoin ETF would be on the major stock trading platforms and allow institutional investors to buy Bitcoin easily if it's the right sort of ETF. A lot of these ETFs submitted are paper Bitcoins. Like the direct sale on Bitcoin ETFs that are being stayed and reviewed by the senior officials, they're paper Bitcoins based on the futures markets in Chicago, which are also paper Bitcoins, and therefore they're not even good for the market. Essentially, if these Bitcoin ETFs are approved that aren't based on actual Bitcoins, if the Winklevoss Bitcoin Trust ETF and the VanEck Solid X Bitcoin ETF, which were rejected and delayed respectively, those aren't going to see any approval anytime soon. But the ones that are being reviewed that could possibly be approved, hopefully not, because I'm about to explain this, it's paper Bitcoins, based on paper Bitcoins. So someone could buy $1 trillion of this ETF. It'll be easy for them to buy it. It'll be on all the stock trading platforms. They could buy $1 trillion of it. Technically, it won't affect the global Bitcoin price, but it does affect it the opposite way. If someone's buying like $1 trillion of Bitcoin ETFs that are paper Bitcoins, that'll take away from the money that will go into the actual Bitcoin market. So Bitcoin's price long term will be lower if a paper Bitcoin ETF exists. So maybe a Bitcoin ETF that's based on actual Bitcoins, because if it's based on actual Bitcoins and they buy Bitcoin every time someone buys that ETF, that would affect the global spot market. It would increase the global spot price. If it's paper Bitcoins, it does not increase it. So Brian Kelly is right on that, but it's not the only thing. And that's why he's totally wrong. Like I was talking about, Bitcoin was grown, it was first found and grown by the common people, and that's how it is. Adoption is spreading from person to person across the world. For example, Bitcoin ATMs are proliferating. We did an article and we talked about this on the radio show. It's like over 3,500, maybe it's like 4,000 now. It's like 8 new Bitcoin ATMs per day around the world. Bitcoin ATMs are like a mini Bitcoin exchange that people can access easily, instantly. They can get their Bitcoin instantly or sell their Bitcoin instantly. So that turns Bitcoin into a real currency. You can, like, if you get paid in Bitcoin, you can pay your rent with it easily. You run to that ATM, get the cash out. Or if you want to buy Bitcoin, you run to it, get the Bitcoin. It turns Bitcoin into an easy-to-use currency. So the Bitcoin ATMs are the ground game. And also we have crypto hedge funds that are investing in Bitcoin a ton. There's 466 right now. Well, when I did the article in the show, it's probably even more now. There's like more every day, or almost every day. So crypto hedge funds are laying the groundwork for institutional investors. And these are for institutional investors. People can invest in these crypto hedge funds, and then Bitcoin will go up from that. And it'll especially happen during the next Bitcoin rally. This is like the infrastructure. The crypto hedge funds and the Bitcoin ATMs are their infrastructure. So when Bitcoin starts going up into the next rally, it's going to rapidly accelerate like never seen before upwards. And we'll talk about this in another story coming up. Yeah, Bitcoin has all this infrastructure in the form of Bitcoin ATMs and crypto hedge funds and a couple of other things. We're about to mention that. But when the next rally starts, it's really going to go up more rapidly than we can imagine because the infrastructure is there for people to rapidly invest in Bitcoin. It's not the ETF. Brian Kelly's saying it's the ETF. It's not. And also there's a couple more things. There's the Bitcoin Exchange Traded Note, and it's just like an ETF basically. It's an ETN, and people could buy it on all the major stock trading platforms that they allow. Fidelity is allowing it. That's a major stock trading platform. So some of these stock trading platforms are flat out not allowing the ETN, even though it's approved by regulators. It's been in Europe since 2015, and it just entered the US. And it's a great option for buying Bitcoin because it's backed by actual Bitcoins. This ETN is better than any of the ETFs being considered. And Brian Kelly says the ETF is what matters. No, the ETN's approved and it's better. And then Backed, which is being created by the Intercontinental Exchange, which is the owner of the New York Stock Exchange, is launching physical Bitcoin futures. And this will provide the ultimate route for institutional investment. These are coming in November 2018, pending regulatory approval. And it's not the SEC that's approving it, it's the CFTC, Commodity Futures Trading Commission. It's very likely to be approved because the owners of the NYSE, the biggest stock exchange in the world, are the ones proposing this. They'll do it right. And once it's up there, institutional investors will choose the physical Bitcoin futures, which are settled for physical Bitcoins every single day and therefore affect the global spot price. So there's instruments for institutional investors from the physical Bitcoin futures that are coming, the ETN that already exists, the crypto hedge funds that already exist, and then for the little guys, there's all these Bitcoin ATMs. I think everything is already in place. There are no more hurdles. All we need is like a little rally and all this will take off by itself. Of course, those physical Bitcoin futures, when they're approved, that will provide the rally. Automatically, intrinsically, it will cause a rally. And then everything else will take shape because all the infrastructure is in place. And this goes to our next story.
Bobby Lee says Bitcoin $60,000 is not a matter of if, it's a matter of when.
Affirmative, Space Cadet. Bobby Lee, which is the CEO or the operator or owner of BTCC, and BTCC was like the second biggest exchange in the world. They had some turbulence when China banned all the Bitcoin exchanges, but now they're back and live. Bobby Lee is well respected. He's often right about these things. He says Bitcoin's going to hit $60,000, and it's not a matter of if anymore. And not only does he say that, he says it's going to hit $20,000 before the end of 2018. So Bitcoin's going to hit record highs before the end of 2018, according to Bobby Lee, and we just talked about this. And we'll talk a little more about why. But basically, we got the physical Bitcoin futures from Back. They're going to come online in the United States in November 2018. That's going to provide the impetus for a rally. Like before, like the approval for those will come probably by October, and then in November they're going to launch, or even before October. And when the approval happens, it's going to start a rally. And when the rally starts, all those infrastructures in place, like the crypto hedge funds, the Bitcoin ATMs, the ETN. So we have all these ways. Like institutional investors can invest through the ETN and the crypto hedge funds, and normal people can buy it through the ATMs. And also we can't forget there's like Square Cash has Bitcoin, Coinbase has Bitcoin, and all these Bitcoin exchanges have Bitcoin. There's tons of infrastructure. Bitcoin's easily buyable. You don't need an ETF to buy Bitcoin. There's everything available for every class of investor right now. So when the rally starts from physical Bitcoin futures by at least November, it's going to go quick. It's going to rally like insane. Because once the rally starts and then it accelerates from all these infrastructure for buying, it's just going to keep going up, 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 and up. So Bobby Lee sees that and he says, yeah, it's definitely hitting 20,000 by the end of 2018. He's probably right. And that would be very exciting. And then he says it'll go all the way up to 60,000. He says 60,000 is a very important level because just doing the rough math, that'll mean Bitcoin has a market cap of $1 trillion. And he says there's going to be a lot more stability and respect and trustworthiness as an asset class once Bitcoin hits $1 trillion. There might even be less volatility and such. And it might actually just keep going up for a while once it hits $1 trillion. We'll see. That's the speculation. And there's other people saying this. Some people are saying Bitcoin's going to hit 100,000. John McAfee definitely thinks. And John McAfee's just like, he made McAfee software, but that's not really what he's known for anymore. He's a big advocate for the crypto world. He says it's going to hit $1 million in the next couple of years. So yeah, John McAfee would definitely say it's hitting 20,000 or more before the end of 2018. And really what everyone's saying is like once it starts going up, it's going to go up a ton. And this has been the trend for Bitcoin for a long time. Bitcoin's been going up by an order of magnitude about every 2 to 3 years. An order of magnitude is 1,000%. Literally, it's gone from $1 to $10 to $100 to $1,000 to $10,000, and now we're right around there. We're between 10,000 and 100,000. I know we're less than 10,000 right now, but I already hit 20,000. Then, in 2 to 3 years, if the trend continues, and the trend has always been continuing since Bitcoin launched about 10 years ago, it'll hit 100,000 2 to 3 years after that $20,000 peak. There's always like a nice bear market for a while, but then it goes up. I don't think this bear market's going to last as long as the previous ones. Because once the rally starts, it's just going to go up like crazy because there's a lot more market and infrastructure and consumers for Bitcoin now than there was during the last bear rally back in like 2013 or 2014, 2015. And just to get back to the basic points about Bitcoin, it's cryptographically secure. Nothing is as secure as Bitcoin. Cash can be robbed. Banks can be hacked. Bitcoin cannot be hacked by even the most powerful supercomputer. You can go onto an airplane with $1 billion of Bitcoin, they won't even know you have it. If you try bringing like $10 million of cash on an airplane, it'll get seized. Bitcoin is not being abused by any country. The USD and every other fiat currency has a central bank leveraging that fiat currency to make money, and they're stealing from all the citizens by leveraging it, by printing the money, and by doing things with the currency supply and such to make money from the currency. Bitcoin has no central organization. It's decentralized. Another point about decentralization, you have to destroy like every computer in the world to stop Bitcoin. With USD, it's not like that. Bitcoin's actually more dug in than fiat currency. And like I said, it's cryptographically secure. You can send it anywhere in the world instantly. Because gold has a lot of these characteristics. Except gold has a big paper market of comics that dilutes its price. There's a chance Bitcoin could have a paper gold market too if these stupid ETFs are approved. But we're not going to be talking about that too much. So Bitcoin is better than gold because you could send it instantly across the world. Efficiently and cheaply. You could send $1 billion to like Cuba where like it's banned to send a bunch of money. You can send $1 billion to Cuba. You can send $1 billion to Cuba from the North Pole for like less than $1. So you can send Bitcoin anywhere in the world. No one can stop it. It's an automated computer program. You can send it anywhere in the world for anything instantly. It's not like gold. Gold's very cumbersome. It's physical. You can't just send even $1 million of gold without like a ton of shipping costs. Bitcoin costs less than $1 to send like any amount. You can send all the Bitcoins if you somehow were able to buy all of them. You can send them all for like less than $1 pretty much. So Bitcoin is the cheapest way to send money internationally, the most efficient way, the fastest way, and it's cryptographically secure. So there are all those reasons, plus all the infrastructure that's been developed because of those reasons. People developed all this infrastructure to buy Bitcoin because of those intrinsic reasons. Bitcoin is so much better than fiat currency. So the rally is coming. Thanks for listening to this August 25th, 2018 edition of the BitcoinNews.com Daily Radio Show. We'll be back tomorrow. But in the meantime, and all the time, go to BitcoinNews.com 24/7 for the full spectrum of crypto, blockchain, and Bitcoin news. This is your host, Space Marine, signing out.
And this is Space Cadet. We're out of here.
Adios, amigos.